Jenny packed her bags and flew back to America. Sumit stayed in India. No shouting, no slammed doors, no last stand, only silence. And silence speaks louder than any fight ever did. This was not a breakup scene built for cameras. This was the moment where nothing needed saying anymore. When one partner leaves the space and the other does not follow, something shifts deep inside the marriage. The kind of shift you do not see until it is already done. Viewers watched the distance grow and thought it was temporary. A pause. A reset. But what if the marriage already ended emotionally long before the flight landed? What if the goodbye already happened without a single argument on screen? This story promises truth over noise. Not chaos, not betrayal. Something slower and heavier, because buried in those quiet scenes was a change most people missed, and once you see it, the whole relationship looks different. When Jenny and Sumit first appeared on screen, nobody thought quiet would ever be part of their story. Their beginning felt loud from day one. An American woman in her 60s falling for a younger man in India. An age gap people refused to ignore. A culture gap people refused to soften. From the start, their relationship asked viewers to pick sides. Some rooted for love, others waited for disaster. And both groups stayed glued because the stakes felt personal. Jenny did not walk into an easy situation. She left behind familiarity, routine, and comfort to move across the world for a man who still lived under his parents' roof. That alone set the tone. This was not a romance built on stability. This was a romance built on risk. She learned a new country, new customs, new rules about respect and family duty. And she did all of that while knowing she would never fully blend in. That choice mattered, because once someone gives up their entire support system, the relationship stops being optional. It becomes survival. Sumit brought his own weight into the mix. Family expectations pressed on him from every side. Loyalty to parents, cultural pressure to conform, fear of disappointing everyone. Watching him felt like watching someone split in two. One foot pointed toward Jenny, the other stuck in a life he never fully exited. That tension followed them into every scene. Even happy moments carried strain underneath. The age gap stayed front and center. Viewers talked about it. Family talked about it. Strangers online dissected it like a crime scene. Jenny carried the brunt of that judgment. People questioned her motives, her awareness, her future. Sumit often stood silent while those questions flew. Sometimes silence looked like protection. Other times, silence felt like absence. Both interpretations lived side by side. What held them together early on was urgency. Every season brought a new threat. Family rejection, housing instability, marriage delays, legal stress. There was always a fire to put out, and fighting fires together gave their bond energy. When the world pushes back hard enough, the couple starts feeling special, simply for surviving. That feeling can masquerade as intimacy. Jenny endured isolation most people underestimate. Living abroad without a deep support circle changes how a person thinks. Friends disappear. Family becomes distant. Independence shrinks. Daily life starts orbiting one person. In that environment, leaving stops feeling like a choice. It feels like losing everything at once. Staying feels safer even when staying hurts. Sumit lived inside constant emotional negotiation. One moment reassuring Jenny, next moment managing his parents. Every decision required balance. Over time, balance turns into exhaustion. Viewers watched him delay, postpone, hesitate. Some saw fear. Some saw avoidance. Both readings held truth. The problem was not love. The problem was pressure with no release. Light moments kept viewers hopeful. Jokes about miscommunication, awkward family dinners, small wins that felt huge because everything else felt uphill. Those moments mattered. They gave the sense that effort alone would eventually earn peace. That belief powered the relationship for years. But effort has a cost, and endurance always sends the bill later. This relationship survived on crisis energy. When one obstacle cleared, another rushed in. That rhythm trained both partners to live in reaction mode. Fix the problem, survive the moment, worry about tomorrow later. Stability never arrived because stability was never the focus. Survival was. People often confuse sacrifice with success. Jenny sacrificed constantly. Time, comfort, security, identity. The longer she stayed, the more those sacrifices became proof of commitment. Walking away would mean admitting the cost never paid off. That trap holds many people far longer than love ever does. Sumit carried his own version of sacrifice. He lived in tension. He delayed adulthood in some ways. He stayed suspended between two worlds. Pleasing one side always disappointed the other. Over time, that internal tug erodes clarity. Decisions stop moving forward. They stall. From the outside, their story looked dramatic. From the inside, the pattern stayed consistent. Urgency replaced ease. Fixing replaced enjoying. Surviving replaced building. That distinction matters. Relationships built on survival feel intense. They feel meaningful. They feel earned. But they rarely feel calm. And calm was always missing here. Empathy matters in this story. Neither partner entered with bad intent. Both wanted love to solve problems bigger than love ever solves. Both underestimated the long-term cost of constant strain. That does not make either person wrong. It makes the structure fragile. As seasons passed, viewers stopped seeing growth and started seeing repetition. Different problem. Same emotional outcome. That repetition quietly trained Jenny to brace herself instead of relax. It trained Sumit to delay instead of decide. Over time, those habits harden. What once looked like persistence began to look like endurance. And endurance changes how love feels. Love starts feeling heavy. Love starts demanding proof. Love stops offering rest. Survival keeps a relationship alive in the moment, but survival always charges interest later, and the bill never arrives when anyone feels ready. This season feels different the moment you settle in. The volume is lower. The tension does not spike the way it used to. No dramatic confrontations. No urgent deadlines. No frantic conversations about family approval or legal barriers. On the surface, it almost looks like progress. After years of chaos, calm can feel earned. Viewers are conditioned to associate peace with healing. Less fighting must mean things are better. Right? But something else is happening here, and it is quieter than conflict ever was. The energy between Jenny and Sumit has shifted from reactive to distant. They are not circling the same problems anymore. They are moving alongside them. Conversations feel shorter. Pauses last longer. Eye contact breaks sooner. These are not explosive signs. They are subtle ones. And subtlety is where emotional detachment usually hides. When couples stop arguing, it can mean they finally understand each other. Or it can mean they have stopped trying to be understood. The difference lives in effort, not tone. This season, effort feels reduced. Not in a dramatic way, in a tired way. Jenny speaks more slowly now. Her words sound measured, careful, almost rehearsed. That does not signal peace by default. Often it signals someone who has learned that pushing leads nowhere. When a person stops escalating, it is sometimes because they have accepted the limits of the situation, not because the situation improved. Sumit appears calmer too, less defensive, less torn. On paper, that looks healthy, but calm without clarity can also mean emotional withdrawal. He is no longer visibly stuck between two worlds. Instead, he seems settled inside one, even if he does not name it. That kind of calm can come from resolution, or it can come from resignation. What is missing most is urgency. Earlier seasons thrived on urgency. Every episode carried the feeling that something had to be decided now. Marriage, family approval, living arrangements. The pressure forced engagement. It forced emotion into the open. Without urgency, there is space. And in that space, distance grows, if nothing replaces the pressure. Silence is not neutral. Silence is information. Long-term couples know this instinctively. Silence can be comforting when both people feel secure. It becomes dangerous when both people stop checking in emotionally. This season's silence feels unexamined. It just exists. Nobody names it. Nobody challenges it. The narration avoids blaming either person, because behavior tells the story more clearly than character ever could. Jenny is not colder. She is quieter. Sumit is not cruel. He is less present. Those differences matter. Emotional disengagement rarely looks like villainy. It looks like low energy. There is also a noticeable shift in body language. Physical closeness feels habitual rather than intentional. Touch happens out of routine, not desire. When affection becomes automatic, it loses information value. It stops communicating choice and starts communicating habit. Still, fairness matters. There is a counterpoint worth acknowledging. After years of turmoil, some couples do settle into calm. Growth can look boring on camera. Healing is rarely cinematic. Maybe this is what stability looks like for them. Maybe peace arrived quietly because chaos finally burned itself out. That possibility deserves space. People mature. Priorities change. Emotional regulation improves. A calmer dynamic does not automatically mean fading love. Some couples stop performing emotion because they no longer need to prove it. That interpretation holds weight. But doubt creeps in when calm arrives without warmth. Peace usually brings lightness, laughter, shared ease. This season feels flatter, not lighter. Conversations resolve quickly but without satisfaction. Agreement comes too easily, as if neither person wants to dig deeper. The absence of curiosity stands out. Jenny no longer probes. Sumit no longer reassures. When curiosity disappears, connection follows. Healthy calm still includes interest in the other person's inner world. That curiosity feels muted here. Another sign is future talk. Earlier seasons obsessed over the future. Even when it caused stress, the future mattered. This season avoids it. Plans feel vague. Language shifts from when to if. That subtle grammatical change carries emotional weight. Detachment does not announce itself. It seeps in when the emotional cost of engagement outweighs the perceived benefit. People conserve energy when they believe effort will not change outcomes. That belief often forms quietly after years of repetition. Jenny has lived in uncertainty for a long time. Chronic uncertainty trains people to lower expectations. Sumit has lived in conflict for a long time. Chronic conflict trains people to avoid emotional intensity. Put those adaptations together, and you get a relationship that looks calm but feels hollow. The viewer senses something off even without drama because humans are wired to notice absence. We feel when something essential goes missing, even if we cannot name it immediately. That discomfort is not about fights. It is about connection thinning out. Calm is only healthy when it rests on mutual engagement. When calm replaces engagement, it becomes emotional distance wearing a peaceful mask. And there is one small detail that disrupts the entire calm narrative. In several quiet moments, when the conversation ends, neither of them reaches for the other. No lingering glance. No instinctive check-in. The silence does not pull them together. It leaves them apart. Jenny leaving India was framed on screen as a visit, a break, a practical decision, a plane ticket, a timeline, a return date left open. But emotionally, it was something much bigger. It was the first time in years that her identity stepped out of survival mode. Geography changed, but so did perspective. Distance does that. It softens fear and sharpens truth at the same time. For a long stretch of this relationship, Jenny's sense of self was fused to place. India was not just where Sumit lived, it was where her choices narrowed. Where leaving meant collapse. Where staying meant endurance. When she boarded that plane, she did more than cross borders. She removed the pressure that had been shaping every thought she had. Without that pressure, the noise inside her finally lowered. Distance lowers fear, because consequences feel less immediate. No family disapproval in the next room. No cultural tension in daily errands. No emotional negotiation woven into every routine. When fear fades, clarity takes its place, and clarity is dangerous to relationships built on endurance. It asks questions survival never has time for. In America, Jenny regained something subtle but powerful: options. Not necessarily better options, but visible ones. Choice returns when environment changes. People underestimate how much context controls emotional dependence. When the context shifts, dependence loosens. That is not betrayal. That is psychology. This shift quietly altered the power balance between them. For years, Sumit's home turf set the rules. His family, his culture, his social world. Jenny adapted constantly. Once she left, the field leveled. She was no longer the one compromising daily just to exist. Emotional leverage shifted without either of them naming it. Sumit felt that shift even if he could not articulate it. His calm began to read differently. Not grounded. Unchallenged. When one partner gains distance, the other often feels exposed. The dynamic that once relied on proximity suddenly has to survive absence. Not all relationships do. Jenny's voice changes when she speaks from afar. Less apologetic, less pleading, not angry, just clearer. Clarity does not raise volume. It lowers it. She no longer needs to convince anyone of her sacrifice because she is no longer making it in real time. Viewer empathy peaks here because this is a human moment, not a reality TV one. Many people recognize this shift. The moment you step away and realize how heavy things felt until they stopped being constant. The moment relief surprises you. Relief is not joy, but relief carries information. The tone slows here because this realization is not dramatic. It arrives gently. It creeps in during ordinary moments. Waking up without tension, making decisions without checking someone else's emotional weather. That calm is different from the earlier calm. This calm is internal. But clarity also tightens the story again. Because once clarity appears, it does not negotiate. It does not fade easily. It asks direct questions. What am I getting? What am I giving? What am I avoiding by staying? Those questions are dangerous to long-standing compromises. Distance also reframes memory. Problems once normalized start to look extreme. Sacrifices once justified start to look disproportionate. Patterns once excused start to look permanent. This does not make the past fake. It makes it visible. Sumit, still in India, remains inside the old structure. His calm now contrasts with Jenny's emerging clarity. Where he feels settled, she feels awakened. That mismatch is subtle but destabilizing. Relationships require synchronized emotional timelines. When one partner evolves faster, friction follows even without conflict. This is not about blame. Jenny did not leave to punish. Sumit did not stay to control. But outcomes do not care about intent. The emotional distance created by physical distance began doing work neither of them planned. There is also fear here, even if it is quieter. Fear of what clarity demands. Fear of admitting that endurance was never the same as fulfillment. Fear of what happens if the relationship cannot survive honesty. The script tightens again because clarity creates momentum. Once someone sees themselves clearly outside a relationship, returning requires justification. Not nostalgia, not loyalty, justification. And that bar is much higher. The viewer senses that something irreversible has started. Not a breakup, a shift in self-perception. And self-perception rarely reverses once it changes. The quietest sign that something broke is not distance or silence. It is this: Jenny no longer sounds like she is waiting. And once waiting ends, clarity rarely goes away. Sumit's story this season is told mostly through what he does not say. Silence has become his dominant language. Not defensive silence. Not hostile silence. A quieter kind. The kind that forms after years of emotional overload. It is tempting to read that silence as indifference or manipulation, but that reading misses something important. Silence can also be fatigue settling in. For a long time, Sumit lived at the center of constant pressure. Family expectations never eased. Cultural duty never softened. His relationship with Jenny required emotional negotiation every day. Choosing her meant disappointing others. Choosing others meant hurting her. That tug of war never ended. Over time, the nervous system adapts. When there is no winning move, people stop moving. Avoidance becomes a coping strategy, not a scheme. Not deciding feels safer than deciding wrong. Silence feels safer than words that create consequences. This is not emotional maturity, but it is emotional self-preservation. And self-preservation often looks like withdrawal. This act resists the easy villain narrative because villains act with intention. What we see here is stalling, not scheming. Sumit does not push Jenny away. He also does not pull her closer. He exists in a holding pattern. That pattern protects him from immediate pain, but it creates long-term damage. Family pressure still looms even when it is off-screen. Cultural loyalty does not disappear just because cameras stop focusing on it. His parents remain a gravitational force. Even when they are quiet, their expectations shape his choices. Carrying that weight for years drains emotional energy. Eventually, people stop fighting what they believe cannot be changed. Emotional numbness fits here not as a diagnosis, but as a description. When feelings stay intense for too long, the mind dulls them to survive. Numbness is not cruelty. It is a shield. But shields block connection as effectively as they block pain. The asymmetry between Jenny and Sumit becomes clearer now. Jenny's distance gave her clarity. Sumit's proximity keeps him suspended. She is gaining perspective. He is maintaining equilibrium. Those are not compatible movements. One moves forward, the other stays still. This mismatch raises the stakes because relationships do not break only from conflict. They break when growth happens unevenly. Jenny is asking internal questions now. Sumit is avoiding external ones. She is redefining herself. He is preserving a fragile balance. Sumit's calm is deceptive. It is not peace earned through resolution. It is peace borrowed from avoidance. Borrowed peace always comes due. His lack of urgency once stabilized the relationship. Now it exposes the gap between them. There is sadness here that deserves acknowledgement. Sumit did not choose this dynamic maliciously. He adapted to survive. But adaptation has limits. When survival strategies outlive the crisis, they start damaging what they once protected. He hesitates because hesitation delays loss. As long as nothing is decided, nothing ends. That logic makes sense emotionally, but it ignores a harder truth. Relationships do not wait for decisions. They respond to patterns. And patterns have already formed. Jenny's clarity quietly removes the safety net hesitation relies on. When one partner stops waiting, the other's indecision becomes visible. What once felt like caution starts looking like absence. Not because intent changed, but because context did. The tragedy here is not betrayal. It is misalignment. Sumit is conserving energy in a moment that requires direction. Jenny is seeking honesty in a moment that exposes avoidance. Neither approach is evil. Together, they are incompatible. As viewers, it is easy to demand action. Decide, choose, commit, or let go. But for someone who has lived under constant emotional threat, choice itself feels dangerous. Commitment risks explosion. Separation risks collapse. So he stays still. Stillness feels neutral. It is. Once a relationship lives in public, it stops belonging only to the people inside it. Jenny and Sumit crossed that line years ago. From that moment on, their story was no longer just emotional, it was performative. Fans watched, commented, took sides, built narratives. And public pressure has a strange effect on private decisions. It delays them. Social media does not just react to relationships like this. It feeds them. Every post becomes proof. Every silence becomes speculation. Supporters frame endurance as strength. Critics frame staying as weakness. Either way, attention rewards continuation. Walking away no longer feels like a personal choice. It feels like a public statement. Viewer commentary often reduces complex dynamics into simple themes. Jenny deserves better. Sumit needs to choose. Love conquers all. Age ruined everything. These takes feel decisive, but real relationships do not move in comment section logic. Still, when thousands of voices repeat simplified conclusions, they seep into the background noise of the couple's reality. Public relationships often last longer than they should because ending them requires more than emotional readiness. It requires narrative courage. Someone has to accept being cast as the villain in someone else's story. Someone has to endure strangers rewriting years of lived experience into a headline. That weight keeps people performing long after the feeling fades. Performance becomes subtle. It is not staged arguments or forced affection. It is the maintenance of appearances. Showing up together. Avoiding definitive language. Letting ambiguity do the work. As long as nothing is clearly over, the audience stays hopeful. Hope buys time. The split between performance and reality widens slowly. On camera, calm suggests maturity. Online, distance gets reframed as growth. In private, the emotional work stalls. That split is exhausting. Keeping a relationship alive for an audience requires energy. When that energy dries up, something shifts. The tone sharpens here because pop culture has seen this pattern repeatedly. Celebrity couples, influencer marriages, reality TV romances. The story always looks stable right before it stops being defended. The signs are never loud, they are procedural. At first, couples correct rumors quickly. Then they respond vaguely. Then they stop responding at all. Silence replaces reassurance. Not because they want drama, but because defending something they no longer feel drains them. Jenny and Sumit have reached that phase. Notice what is missing. No urgency to clarify. No pushback against speculation. No insistence on misunderstanding. When people believe in a relationship, they protect its narrative. When belief weakens, narrative maintenance feels pointless. Public scrutiny also freezes people in outdated versions of themselves. Jenny becomes the woman who sacrificed everything. Sumit becomes the man who cannot choose. Those identities calcify online. Growth threatens the brand. And brands resist change. The audience feels like insiders now because patterns are recognizable. The jokes land sharper. The empathy carries a knowing edge. This is not about rooting for an ending. It is about recognizing one forming. There is also a quiet relief in letting the public narrative loosen. No more explaining. No more defending choices that no longer feel true. For someone gaining clarity, public silence can feel like reclaiming ownership. For someone avoiding decisions, public silence can feel like hiding. Same behavior. Different motivation. This is where public relationships quietly unravel. Not with announcements, with disengagement, with the slow withdrawal from shared storytelling. The moment when a couple stops saying we to the world, even if they still say it to each other. Endings rarely begin with breakups. They begin when no one feels compelled to argue for the relationship anymore. Grief often comes quietly. Jenny is already mourning the life she imagined with Sumit, the future she planned. It is not about anger or betrayal. It is about loss. The version of herself who believed in this marriage is gone. Every decision she made, every compromise, every sacrifice now exists as memory, not as a living choice. That weight presses down, even in moments of calm. Love is still there, but hope is slipping. It is a strange feeling to love someone while realizing that the life you dreamed with them may never exist. That tension shapes every interaction. A smile can feel hollow. A hug can feel like a habit rather than connection. Jenny notices these moments in herself, small signs of emotional distance that are almost invisible to the casual observer. Peace slowly replaces passion. The chaos that once fueled survival is gone, and with it, the adrenaline of urgency. There is no argument, no fight, no dramatic confrontation to keep the relationship alive. The silence is louder than any shout, and every quiet moment reminds her of what has been lost. Grief does not have a schedule. It overlaps with living, with routines, with daily decisions that no longer feel urgent. Jenny moves through India with careful attention to herself, noticing when she is holding tension, when she feels free to breathe, when the need to please has softened. Each act of self-awareness is part mourning, part reclaiming. The loss is not about Sumit's character or his choices. It is about the mismatch between what was promised and what exists. The script does not assign blame. It frames the emotional journey as natural, human, unavoidable once hope fades. Jenny is not failing. She is responding to reality. This stage of grief shows that relationships are more than drama. They are patterns of trust, energy, and expectation. When the energy for fighting fades, hope becomes fragile. When hope falters, love feels insufficient. Jenny realizes she can no longer sustain the marriage in the way she used to, even though she still cares. Distance sharpens clarity. Being away from India, away from family pressure, away from daily survival mode decisions, allows Jenny to notice what she wants now. She weighs safety, stability, and personal fulfillment against the bonds that once tied her. Each reflection is a small reclamation of choice, a silent assertion of autonomy. Meanwhile, Sumit's inaction is its own kind of grief. Avoidance becomes coping. The same silence that signals resignation to Jenny signals stalling for him. Neither response is dramatic, but both are telling. The asymmetry is emotional, not moral. One moves toward clarity. The other waits, holding on to inertia. Viewers can feel the tension because it is universal. We have all loved something that could not survive in the form we imagined. Jenny's journey is a mirror of that quiet heartbreak. We see hope fading before anger, clarity before confrontation. It is deeply human, and it is what makes this moment so compelling. Peace can feel like betrayal after years of fighting. It is confusing. How can stillness, acceptance, and careful self-preservation feel like giving up on love? Jenny wrestles with this internally. She asks herself whether honoring her own needs is selfish or necessary. That question does not have an easy answer. Yet, this is precisely where emotional freedom begins. Mourning the future does not mean erasing the past. It means integrating experience, acknowledging sacrifice, and finally recognizing personal limits. Jenny learns that surviving a relationship does not always mean fixing it. Sometimes it means letting go internally before letting go externally. The final emotional turn is approaching. Jenny's silence, her calculated steps, her quiet awareness, all point to an irreversible internal shift. The marriage may still exist in physical form, but its emotional foundation is gone. The audience senses that the ending is closer than anyone on camera dares admit. This is the moment where grief becomes agency, where loss transforms into self-possession, where calm is more powerful than confrontation, and clarity outweighs passion. Jenny's internal separation precedes any legal or public acknowledgement. That is the quiet, unshakable truth. Even without shouting, the emotional story has shifted completely. The calm is deceptive, but precise. It carries weight. It signals the finality that loud drama cannot always convey. The audience is left holding the space between love, loss, and choice, understanding that the hardest endings are often the quietest ones. Her mourning is not over, but the path forward is now clear. The silence that once seemed empty now feels charged. Jenny is stepping into herself, and the question lingers. Can clarity ever be undone once it has arrived? The hardest moments are not the fights, the yelling, or the dramatic confrontations. They are the ones that happen quietly, behind closed doors, in pauses between words, in the subtle shifts no one filming notices. Jenny's love for Sumit is still there, but it no longer outweighs the need for safety, clarity, and self-respect. The endurance that once held them together has reached its limit. What remains is a delicate, invisible line between attachment and autonomy, one she is beginning to honor. This is not about betrayal, failure, or villainy. It is about the natural evolution of a relationship that once thrived on crisis and survival. Jenny's story shows that love alone cannot sustain a partnership when the emotional energy required to keep it alive disappears. Sometimes the end is quieter, less dramatic, but more permanent. The heart lets go, even before the hands do. For viewers, this is a reminder that relationships are lived in behavior, not declarations. Moments of withdrawal, small disengagements, or shifts in attention matter more than grand gestures. The subtle pattern Jenny and Sumit are following is one that can emerge anywhere. When one person gains clarity and the other hesitates, when hope softens and endurance becomes a routine, the quiet ending is already in motion. The story does not conclude with a wedding gone wrong or a fight caught on camera. Instead, it leaves us with a lingering awareness. Endings can be invisible, felt more than seen. The emotional balance has shifted, even if the cameras have yet to catch it. It is a pause pregnant with meaning, a realization that the relationship has changed irreversibly without a single shouted word. And while Jenny steps forward into clarity, viewers might notice the pattern repeating in other corners of the show. Another couple may be showing the same small, almost invisible signs of emotional divergence. The warning signals are subtle, the shifts quiet, but the trajectory is unmistakable. The story moves forward, and the audience is left watching closely, knowing that the quietest endings often hit hardest. Some love transforms people instead of lasting forever. Jenny's transformation is underway, and somewhere else, a similar pattern is quietly unfolding, waiting to be seen.